In September 1930, a nearby merchant travelled to Dietrich Farm, southwest of Spry, to pick up some potatoes owed to him. He found Dietrich dead in his barn. He had hanged himself. He summoned the coroner, and the two entered the farmhouse and found Dietrich's wife and 4 children dead on the second floor. He had axed them all. On the kitchen table, they found a note. Financial worry, it said. Welcome back to another episode, as I take you back to the 20th century. The Dietrich mass murderer. Located between York and Dallastown, the village of Spry has a fascinating history. Originally named Innesville, the village was named after Jacob Innes. His widow, Susan Innes, ran a hotel there from 1830 to 1850. Susanna was the daughter of Captain John MacDonald, a veteran of the Revolutionary War, who owned the land where the village was eventually developed. In July 1886, when the first post office opened, the name Spry was chosen, although the reason is unclear. There isn't any record of a person named Spry being an early settler or an important figure, and soon the name Innesville faded from memory. In 1902, the completion of the York and Dallastown Electric Railway brought rapid growth to this small farming community. Within just a few years, Spry had over 50 houses, 3 general stores, and several cigar factories. Today, Spry is a bustling suburb of York, filled with modern housing developments and numerous businesses. However, for most of its history, it was primarily known as a quiet farming town. In September 1930, Spry became infamous for the worst murder in York County's history. A local farmer, who was reportedly insane, brutally killed an entire family with an axe, shocking the peaceful community and changing its reputation forever. The summer of 1930 was hot and dry. Just a few years before this, a several drought had turned the high plains into a dust bowl. Similar conditions of little rain and the destruction of soil due to fast development caused serious problems for the farmers in York County and other areas east of the Rocky Mountains. By August, farmers in states like Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, and Illinois reported that their corn crops had completely failed. The government of Virginia even wrote to President Hoover asking for a national day of prayer for rain. In New Jersey, dairy farmers faced huge financial losses, as the crops like clover, alfalfa, and tomatoes were completely destroyed. Governor Sampson of Kentucky noted that many sheep and cattle were being sent to slaughter because they had lost so much value, by as much as 90%, since farmers couldn't afford to buy feed. With pastures dried up, there was a widespread milk shortage across the United States. In Pennsylvania, many people in York County saw an unusual sight. An entire herd of sheep and cattle grazing along the Susquehanna River, which was one of the few places where green grass could still be found among the dry patches of riverbed. On August 12th, reports stated that there wasn't a single blade of grass to be seen between Long Level and Wrightsville. On August 1st, Pennsylvania's Department of Agriculture reported that the state's corn crop had decreased by 33%. Hay production dropped by 500,000 tons, and farmers lost about 1.5 million bushels of potatoes. Additionally, the honey crop, a vital source of income for York County, was nearly non-existent that summer. This drought not only caused hardship for farmers but also affected the entire economy and community, leading many to worry about food shortages and financial struggles. The severe drought didn't just hurt farmers and food supplies. It also sparked fierce fights over drinking water in York County. When privately owned water companies refused to follow state orders to provide more water, residents in Hanover and other dry areas formed groups, threatened to take control of the water supply by force if necessary. While these struggles don't excuse the actions of 42-year-old Harry Dietrich, a farmer from Spry, they do help explain his mental breakdown that led him to kill his wife and 4 children before taking his own life. On Tuesday, September 23rd, Jacob Epley, a local grocer, was in a bad mood after realizing the potatoes had been ordered from Harry still hadn't been delivered. He traveled a mile south to the Dietrich farm to speak with Harry. When Epley arrived around 3 o'clock, the usually busy 80-acre farm was strangely quiet. He knocked on the kitchen door but got no answer, which made him uneasy since he expected to see the 3 Dietrich children playing around. The only signs of life were the weak groans of hungry cows. He called out for Harry, but only his own voice echoed back. Worried, Epley entered the barn and was horrified to find Harry's dead body hanging from a rafter. Without wasting any time, Epley drove back to Spry to inform the coroner, Dr. Lloyd Urban Zeke, who quickly came to the farm. After they cut down Harry's body, they met Kerwin Mummert, who had been hunting on land next to the Dietrich farm. Kerwin hadn't seen any signs of Harry's wife or children, which made the coroner anxious about what else they might find. Entering the house, the coroner braced for the worst. He was well acquainted with death, but wasn't prepared for the horrific scene that awaited them. In the kitchen, the coroner discovered a suicide note inside an empty candy box on the table. The note suggested that the Dietrich family had made a pact to end their lives together. It read, "Financial worry. Bury at stone pile. Tell Sol and Fred to be good to mother. We are out of their way. Also, Calvin Runkle. We decided to die together. I could not leave them alone." The note wasn't signed, and Stone Pile referred to the cemetery at the Bethlehem Stonepile Methodist Church in Red Lion. Sol and Fred mentioned in the note were Harry's brother-in-law and brother, and Calvin Runkle was Mrs. Dietrich's father. This tragic event reflected the severe emotional and financial toll the drought had on families in the area. While Epley and Mummert searched downstairs, Coroner Zeke went upstairs. When he opened the door to one of the bedrooms, he was hit with a sight that made him feel sick. "In all my years as a coroner for this county, I've never seen such a terrible case of violent death." He later recalled, "I can't find the words to describe it. I never wanted to see anything like it again." In the bedroom, there were 3 beds against the wall. 2 of them held 3 of the Dietrich children, 11-year-old Mabel, 8-year-old Anna, and 5-year-old Johnny. Just inside the door was 30-year-old Malvania Dietrich, sprawled on the floor, and the body of 10-year-old Paul was laying next to her. A bloodied axe was on the floor away from Malvina's body. It seemed that after attacking them with the axe, Harry had tied twine tightly around their throats to make sure they were dead. While Harry's suicide note suggested the family had chosen to die together, the evidence told a different story. Malvina had been struck once on the back of her head with the axe while the children were asleep. A child's bloody handprint on the wall showed that one of the kids had tried to fight back. The coroner believed this was Paul, and he speculated that both Paul and Malvina had attempted to escape when Harry had attacked them. The coroner's theory was supported by blood found under an empty bed, suggesting Paul had crawled there to hide from his father. Blood streaks led from under the bed to where Paul fell, indicating that Harry had dragged him out. Coroner Zeke thought that Harry had waited until his family was asleep before killing them one by one with the heavy axe. Another bedroom upstairs, likely used by little Johnny, showed signs of recent use, which might mean Harry had carried him upstairs so all his children could die in the same room. After the murders, Harry went to the barn, grabbed a heavy rope, and made a noose. He hung it around his neck and stepped off a ladder, ending the tragic scene. The coroner believed the murders happened late Sunday night or early Monday morning, as the children's teacher reported they didn't come to school that day. Further investigation by Deputy Sheriff Harry Menges found a letter from a bank in Red Lion, saying that a payment of $3,800 was due on September 27th. Friends and family said Harry had been troubled by the failure of his crop that summer, and authorities concluded that the pressure from his financial struggles drove him to madness. Those who knew Harry described him as a hard-working man of strong moral character, with some even saying he was excessively religious. Malvina had the respect of everyone in the community. Harry kept the farm in excellent shape while Malvina kept the house clean and organized. The walls were adorned with religious pictures, and the family Bible, one of 7 they owned, held a special place in their home. It was clear that Harry had been very close to his mother, Miss Amanda Catherine Dietrich, who lived in Red Lion. When Harry wrote his final goodbye, his mother was on his mind. After hearing there was trouble up at Dietrich Place, it wasn't surprising that she was the first to arrive at the scene of the tragedy. "I knew something was wrong," Harry's mother cried when she found out about the horrific killings and her son's suicide. "Harry wasn't acting like himself when he came over to our house on Sunday afternoon. He wouldn't even come inside to eat." The shock was too much for her to handle, and she collapsed in grief. A doctor from Dallastown, Dr. Frey, was called to help. The thought of burying yet another one of her children was more than she could bear. Over the years, she had already lost 2 daughters in infancy and another at the age of 26. Tragically, Amanda would outlive 6 of her 8 children. While his mother was overwhelmed with sorrow, Harry's father wandered around the farm, lost in a daze, as if he couldn't even comprehend the horror of what his son had done. His mind seemed unable to process the terrible reality that had shattered their family. By this time, large and curious crowds had gathered at the Dietrich farm, drawn by the shocking tragedy. The State Highway Patrol had to step in to keep onlookers and trespassers away, while the 6 bodies were carefully removed and taken to the Furnace B. Allweller Funeral Home in Red Lion. Over 5,000 people came to the funeral home to view the bodies, and even more attended the funeral services at Springdale Evangelical Church on Thursday, September 25th. It was an eerie twist of fate that the pastor who led the funeral service, Reverend Highland, had also officiated Harry and Malvina's wedding ceremony 12 years earlier. As Harry had wished, the family was laid to rest at the Bethlehem Stonepile Church Cemetery. On October 11th, the Dietrich farm and all its property were sold at auction. Elmer Markey of Spry bought it for $4,500, but he wouldn't enjoy his purchase for long. Markey passed away less than 2 years later at just 47 years old. The auction attracted around 4,000 people, and the atmosphere was almost like a carnival. People were eager to buy anything that had been part of the tragic scene, and the sale of the property more than covered Dietrich's debts. Many were particularly interested in purchasing the bed frames from the old farmhouse, but they were disappointed to learn that the beds had already been destroyed before the auction. The house itself had been renovated, with new flooring and fresh wallpaper, erasing any visible signs of the awful event. However, Henry's axes, particularly the ones he used for farming, sold for a good price. Strangely, the axe that had been used to kill his wife and children was not among them, as if it had been purposely kept out of sight.